צור עולמים.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone, and welcome.
Hello.
Let's raise our voices together. Ki va moed, behold, the season has arrived. Yalla, la la la, yalla, la la la, yalla, la la la, yalla, la la.
Page 3. La 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 bottom. La 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 yalla la 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 yalla la yalla la yalla la 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 yalla la yalla la yalla la 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 la. Ki va moed, ki va moed, ki va moed, ki va moed. Yalla la la la, yalla la la la, yalla la la la, yalla la yalla la, yalla la la la, yalla la la la, yalla la la la, yalla la yalla la, yalla la la la, yalla la yalla la, yalla la la la, yalla la. Shabbat shalom, Shabbat shalom, Shabbat shalom, Shabbat shalom, Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone.
Shabbat shalom.
And Shabbat Shalom, and welcome to everyone who's joining us from home. It's so good for us to be together in this way as one Kehillah Kedoshah. Whether we're here in the sanctuary or joining from home, we are together as a Kehillah Kedoshah, a holy community, raising our voices together in song and prayer. And it's so good to be here, and we have a wonderful evening in store, both our service and a special guest who's with us this evening, Peter Jaffe, his wife Janie, from the Stockton Symphony Orchestra. And I will make a formal introduction at the end of our slightly abbreviated service, and we're going to have a wonderful talk. And we always enjoy Peter. We were having dinner together, and I said, you know, Peter, you have a real Yiddish neshama. You have a Jewish soul. And I really feel that. And he has a terrific, warm personality and a great depth of knowledge and wisdom to share with us this evening. So we look forward to that treat. But let us begin as we do every Friday by coming together, by connecting not only with our prayer, but by reaching out in front, behind, and all around the room. Please take a moment to introduce yourselves and to connect and say Shabbat Shalom. Those of you at home, send us a chat. And let's continue now on page 7 in our Siddur, page 7 in our prayer book with Shalom Aleichem, Malachei HaSharet. With this prayer, we welcome what we imagine are the angels of peace who come to us on Friday as we begin Shabbat, this day of peace, and enliven this day for us and help us to settle into just the right mood. And this fairly new melody that we're singing with a Latin rhythm to it is a lot of fun. The words come quickly. So as I always like to say, if the words get in the way, lie, lie, lie works just fine. But please join us and sing along. It's a lot of fun.
Shalom Alechem, Malachei HaShamret, Malachei Elyon. Mimelech Malachei, Malachei HaMlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Shalom Alechem, Malachei HaShamret, Malachei Elyon. Mimelech Malachei, Malachei HaMlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Boachem LeShalom, Malachei HaShalom. Malachei Elyon, Mimelech Malachei HaMlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Shalom Alechem, Malachei HaSharet, Malachei Elyon, Mimelech Malachei, Malachei HaMlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Shalom Alechem, Malachei HaSharet, Malachei Elyon, Mimelech Malachei, Malachei HaMlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Barchuni, Barchuni LeShalom, Malachei HaShalom, Malachei Elyon, Mimelech Malachei HaMlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Shalom Alechem, Shalom Alechem, Shalom Alechem, Shalom Alechem. Try that, Shalom Alechem, Shalom Alechem, Shalom Alechem, Shalom Alechem, Shalom Alechem. Seidechem, Seidechem, Seidechem LeShalom, Malachei HaSharet, Malachei Elyon, Mimelech Malachei HaMlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Shalom Alechem, 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 Shalom Alechem.
Wasn't that fun? Our service continues with the call to worship, the Baruch Hu. Oh, no, it doesn't. With the candles on page 8. And it's a pleasure to invite onto the bima for the honor of lighting the candles, Karma Lindner and Hallie DeAnza, in memory of their father and grandfather, Cantor Samuel Fortis, to whom we owe a great debt of gratitude for all his music and Yiddishkeit and knowledge and love of Torah that he brings to our congregation that Karma is channeling every day.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher shel Shabbat.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Thank you. And now we continue with our call to worship on page 9, and we invite you to rise either physically or in spirit.
La 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 Am I awake? Am I prepared? Are you listening to my prayer? Can you hear my voice? Can you understand? Am I awake? Am I prepared? Baruch et Adonai HaMevorach. Baruch Adonai HaMevorach le'olam va'ed. Le'olam va'ed. Yalalai lai lai, yalalai lai lai, yalalai lai lai, lalalai lai lai, yalalai lai lai, yalalai lai lai, lalalai lai lai, lalalai lai Listen, Israel, Adonai, our God is one. Listen, Israel, Adonai, our God is one. Listen, Israel, Adonai, our God is one. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Le'olam va'ed.
Please be seated. We continue on page 10. V'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha v'chol levavcha v'chol nafshecha u'v'chol me'odecha v'hayu ha'devarim ha'ele asher Anochi metzavecha hayom al levanecha v'shinantam levanecha v'dibarta bam v'shivtecha בדרכך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך ושרתם להוד על ידך והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובישעריך למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני Elohechem. Well, this week we begin the third book of the Torah called in Hebrew Vayikra. And it begins with the words Vayikra el Moshe, and God called upon Moses. And that very first word, Vayikra, is the first word of this entire book. It's the name of the book. It's also the first word of this portion and the name of this portion. And if you look at the word in the Torah, it's written in a very unusual way. The letters are Vav, Yud, Kuf, Resh, and Aleph. But in every Torah scroll, in every synagogue all around the world, the last letter, that letter Aleph, as I'm hoping you can now see projected on the screen over there where I can't see, notice it's smaller than all the preceding letters. It's as if the Vav, Yud, Kaf, and Resh are written in a 12 or 14-point font, but this Aleph was written in maybe a 10-point font. It's a lot smaller. And this word Vayikra in this one place in the Torah is one of only a handful of words in the entire Torah where something like this happens. So this begs us to ask the question, new? What does it mean? Well, like everything in Jewish tradition, there are at least 3 answers. And in this case, each answer is more interesting than the previous. So number 1, the first potential explanation is that this discrepancy is originally due to a scribal error, meaning the very first scribe to write it maybe accidentally kind of made that Aleph a little smaller than the rest of the letters, and so every scribe in every generation in succession wrote it in the same way with the small. You're not buying it, Karma. Well, it is a plausible answer, not very satisfying or meaningful. Second explanation is that the Aleph is written smaller than the other letters to highlight the great humility of Moses. Think about what happened at that famous scene at the burning bush, and God is calling out to Moses and commanding him to go back to Pharaoh to say, "Let my people go." And what does Moses say? "Why me? I'm not worthy of this task." Here too, at this moment in the Torah, as God dictates the words of the Torah directly to Moses, our most important teacher and most important leader, perhaps of all times, is stymied by his humility. "I can't write Vayikra el Moshe," says Moses. God called out to Moses, "Who am I that you should call upon me?" To which God responds, "What would you have me do? Drop the Aleph?" So the text reads Vayiker el Moshe, meaning Moses chanced upon God. So we are told God and Moses strike a compromise, with Moses agreeing to include the Aleph, but only if God allows him to write it smaller than all the other letters. Now, that's a nice lesson about humility, but a final, I think, even more meaningful explanation for that small Aleph is hidden within the fact that the Hebrew words vayikra, and he called, and vayikir, and it happened, are so similar. Only a single letter, that Aleph, which is a silent letter, distinguishes the experience one from the other. Therefore, our sages teach the Aleph is small precisely to call our attention to the fact that each one of us, we have a choice. Will we all see or hear the Aleph of our own experience? Or will we fail to recognize what is right in front of us and all around us? Our choice is whether we will understand that our lives can be purposeful, or maybe not, if we just leave it to a series of happenstance. For us to determine whether we believe things just happen, and so it goes, or that things happen and that each one of us have agency, that we have the power to respond. But for the small Aleph, it's not so clear. Tradition teaches that Moses was such an inspiring figure precisely because he was, in fact, able to discern the soft, silent, divine voice whispering to him from the course of life's events. In our own lives, we too hear the small Aleph vying for our attention, will we? Will our lives be dictated by mere chance? Or will we, like Moses, recognize and respond to the holy cause of our higher selves? The answer is ours to decide. Page 11, Michamocha.
Yai la la la, yai la 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 la, yai la la la, yai la 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 la, la 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 la, ya la la la. Let's hear you. Yai la la la, yai la 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 la, yai la la la, la 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 la, la 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 la, ya la la la. Mi chamocha, ba'ili ma'adonai, mi chamocha, nedarat kodesh, norat tehilot, osei peleh. Mi chamocha, ba'ili ma'adonai, mi chamocha, nedarat kodesh, norat tehilot, osei peleh.
We continue on page 13 at the bottom of the page. as we rise now either physically or in spirit for the chanting of the Amidah.
Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Leah, Elohei Rachel, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor veHanorah, El Elyon, Gomer Chasadim Tovim, Vekonei Hakol, Vezocher Chaste Avot veImahot, Umevi Geula Livnei Bneihem, Lema'an Shemo Be'ahava, Melech Hozer uMoshiach uMagen, Baruch Atah Adonai, Magen Avraham, Be'ezrat Sarah, Atah Gibor Le'olam Adonai, Mechaye HaKol, Atah Rab leHoshia, Mechakel Chaim Bechesed, Mechaye HaKol Berachamim Rabim, Somech Noflim Verofeh Olim, Umatir Asurim, Umekayim Emunato, Lishanei Afar, Michamocha Ba'al Gevurot, Umido Melach, Melech Meimi, Umechaye, Umatzmiach Yeshua, V'ne'emanata l'hachayot hakol, Baruch atah Adonai, L'chayei ha'akol. Atah kadosh v'shimcha kadosh, u'kadoshim b'chol yom, yehalelu chasela. Baruch atah Adonai, ha'el ha'kadosh.
Please be seated. We prayed the liturgy of our service, and we received many messages that have been passed down to us through the generations and through the millennia, going all the way back to the early years of our people, the wisdom of our faith and tradition. But we'd like to offer a few quiet moments for each of us to turn inward and to pray the prayers that are written not on the pages of a book, but on our hearts and on our minds, giving gratitude, thinking about the meaning of our lives and the values that each of us cherish. So let's take a few quiet moments for our own individual prayer and meditation. Tfilat Halev. In each of our services, we like to say special prayers and blessings, and especially blessings for good health and for healing for our friends and family who are ailing and who need whatever strength that we can bring to them with our visits, our calls, with a meal, with our prayers for a refuah shlema, for a full and speedy healing. Those of you who are joining us from home, we invite you to send us in the chat the names of friends and family who you'd like to add to our Misha Berach. And these are the names that we have on our list this week. We pray for the good health and healing for Ann Porteous, Sherwin Sobel, Tom Giuliano, Casey Campbell Shadman, Diane Dakin, Randy Watkins, Gabby Lopez Smith, Rebecca Williams, Victor Altman, Samantha Porteous, John Kaplan, Barry Klein, Ellen Clore, Rachel Frederick, Brooke Hall, Maria Madrigal, Grimilda Tamez, Sherilyn Gross, Vicki Lindner, Chan Fong, Joseph Mayer, Robert Greenstein, Lisa Vogel Shears, Leslie Hirschfield, Dave Sorgent, Sherwin Sobel, and Laura Lipner. And I invite those of us who are here in the sanctuary who have names to add to our list to please say their names aloud as my hand passes across the room. Bill West.
And I add Cheryl Knickerbocker and Diane Nelson. And the Misha Beirach can be found on page 23. And Roberta Marks. Misha Beirach, Avoteinu, B'kol Avraham, Le'imoteinu, may the source of strength, who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Misha Beirach, Imoteinu, B'kol Avraham, Le'avoteinu, bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen. We add Dorley Saxon to our list.
And we add to those names mentioned aloud those of us here and those of you joining us from home who are in need of these same blessings of refuat hanefesh and refuat haguf for healing of mind and body and spirit. Baruch atah Adonai rofeh hacholim. Blessed are you, O God, who heals the sick.
Amen. Continue with a prayer for our country and the state of Israel.
Guardian of life and liberty, grant blessings to our country. Grant our leaders patience and wisdom.
May our homes be safe from affliction and strife, and may we never be lazy in the work of peace. Eternal God, grant blessings to the state of Israel. Protect your people, shelter them with peace, and grant them deliverance from the violence that surrounds them.
May they live in harmony with one another and with their neighbors. May the bonds of faith and faith that unite the Jews of all lands be a source of strength and blessing to each of us and to all the world.
And let us say, Amen.
We continue on page 25 and we rise either physically or in spirit for Elaine.
Aleinu l'shabeach l'adon hakol, latet gedula leotzer breshit, shelo asanu kigoye ha'aratzot, velo samanu kemishpechot ha'adama, shelo sam chelkeinu kahem, vekor aleinu kechol hamonam. Vanachnu korim, umishtachavim umodim, lifnei melech, malchei hamlachim, hakadosh baruch hu, v'ne'emar, v'chaya Adonai, lemelech ha'kol ha'aretz, bayom hahu, bayom hahu,
Yeh Adonai Echad, U'Shemo, U'Shemo, U'Shemo Echad. Please be seated. Before we conclude each of our services, we take a quiet and reverent moment to remember and to pay tribute to the memory of our loved ones who are no longer with us physically, but whom we carry in our hearts. And so they continue to carry and to bless us in a very real way. We invite those of you who are joining us from home, if you are in Shiva or Shloshim or Shana any time in this first year of mourning, please send the names of your loved ones to us so that we can bring them into this holy place. And those who are here, if you are in the first year of mourning, we invite you to please rise and share with us the name of your precious loved ones. Following names are the names of loved ones who have a yort site, the anniversary of their death sometime in the week ahead. If I say the name of your loved one, won't you please stand? We remember with love Ted Brakeman, Sophia Boysa, Timothy James Judson, Laura Freiberger, Miriam Jacobs, Gloria Hogden, Dorothy Markowitz, Betty Frazier, Herbert Binowitz, Paul Cashin, Esther Naranjo, Cantor Samuel Fortis, Jody Coelty, Joel Clare, Jay Hirsch, Bud Apple, Annette Adamson, Kenneth Berg, Francis Shaw, Mojeska Hackett, and Maureen Miller. Is anyone else present marking a yard site this week?
And we add the names of these loved ones: Joseph Tannenbaum, Craig Corin, Eric Friedman, Sylvia Schatzman, Aaliyah Deshay, Larry Lang.
Zichronam Livracha, may the memory of all these precious loved ones be for a blessing and a never-ending source of strength. And we remember as well the 6 million, so many who left no one to remember them, no one to say Kaddish for them. We take their memories into our hearts along with our own loved ones, and we rise now in solidarity with the mourners and recite together on page 26, Mourners Kaddish. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah, v'yalmad divrach erutei v'yamlich malchutei, b'chayachon v'yomechon, u'v'chayei d'chol beit Yisrael, ba'agala u'vizman kari v'imru amen. Yehi shemei Rabbah mivarach le'olam olamei almaya, Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shemei dekudisha barichu, le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, ta'amiran v'yoma v'imru amen. Yehi shalom Rabbah min Shemaya, v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael, v'imru amen. Osei shalom v'imrumav, Huya asay shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, v'imru.
Amen.
May the source of peace send peace to all who mourn and comfort to the bereaved among us, and let us say,
Amen.
please be seated.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
Okay. Goodbye.
Well, I think, as you will all agree, one of the jewels in the crown of our city of Stockton, California, is our Stockton Symphony Orchestra, which is the third oldest continuously operating professional orchestra in the state of California, going all the way back to 1926. And one of the jewels in the crown of the Stockton Symphony, one that shines very brightly, I might add, is our conductor, Maestro Peter Jaffe, who has been its music director since 1995. I came in 93, he came in 95. I rolled out the carpet for him. Peter, come, it's a great town. Anyone who has ever attended our symphony no doubt has been mesmerized by his physicality, which is not just about his height, but his energetic and expressive movement as he conducts. Even if you were deaf, even if you could not hear, you could easily sense the beauty and the passion of every note by simply watching Peter with baton in hand. He is truly amazing, pouring out of every muscle and every sinew of his body. And is that schmaltzy enough? I love it. Peter is also a wonderful educator who brings so much meaning to every performance with his pre-concert talks and the way he introduces every piece and the many programs that he brings out into the community, advancing the cause of music education for young and old alike. There is so much more that I could say about Peter Jaffe, adding to this introduction, because his resume is quite impressive. But I think you would rather hear him speak. And we are so lucky to have Peter here with us and his wife, Janie, who is a musicologist and does the annotation on all the programs of the symphony. Peter will be talking this evening about a very special program coming next weekend to Atherton Auditorium called Unsilenced Voices, Resilience, and Hope, featuring several composers who wrote that music while in the camps, in the concentration camps, and several other pieces that reflect upon those tragic times. Won't you please give a warm welcome, a warm Temple Israel welcome to Peter Jaffe.
Thank you so much. Can you hear me? Am I hooked up? I'm so grateful to be invited here, and the few times I come here, just listening to you play the guitar and listening to you sing, Lindy, it makes me want to weep. It's just so beautiful. I'm now in my 28th season with the Stockton Symphony. They ain't kicked me out yet. And for some time now, I've been approached by our CEO, Philip West, and Jim Morris, one of our board members, and another board member, Suzanne Guidoni, wanting to do a program about this era of World War II, and specifically composers who were composing in the concentration camps. And so we're doing it. As the rabbi just said, on April 1st and 2nd, that's next weekend. It's two performances of the same program. So one of them is on Saturday, April 1st at 7, and the next day there's a matinee show on Sunday at 2:30. And we do call the program Unsilenced Voices, Resilience and Hope, because so much of this is not only amazing that these composers and their music survives despite the fact that these people were banned, but it hooks in so much with today when we're always fighting for truth, to understand what is truth and what is noise out there in the media world. There is so much disinformation that's spread in today's culture. It's actually a miracle that so much of this music survives, and that's the resilience and hope part of it. the concerts are especially meaningful that we recently tragically lost our CEO, Philip West, who died of unforeseen complications from what was supposed to be a minor surgery, and things just went south. And so we're dedicating the programs to him. This was actually the second time I had the pleasure of working with Philip. He was here from 2003 to 2007 as our executive director, and then he went off to lead the Memphis Ballet for over a decade. And then he came out sort of delaying his retirement to come back to this community and be the administrative head of our organization. And he was really very much behind this whole idea of doing this program as well, and so it's fitting that we dedicate these concerts to him. It was quite a task, I gotta tell you, to try to come up with symphonic music that was written by composers in the concentration camps. The huge central core of musical activity that was happening during that time was happening, as you know, at Theresienstadt, which was purportedly by the Nazis supposed to be a model concentration camp so that they could show the rest of the world how well they were treating all their prisoners. And so they had musical programs, and there are a lot of interesting side stories to that. They had a tradition of performing Verdi's Requiem. And you can imagine what the conversations must have been like with the prisoners at that time saying, should we be singing about Jesus and, this Christian tradition? And they were saying, yeah, but the music's so beautiful, why don't we do it? And it was really heartrending because they didn't have an orchestra, but they had a pianist. And you wouldn't even know if you were singing in that chorus whether the person standing next to you would be there the next day in the rehearsals. It was really a moving experience. But some of the composers who were on this program were integral to those programs, and they helped lead those rehearsals. Something else that happened, there was a book that came out a couple of decades ago called Music at Terezin, and there's one passage in it that makes you want to laugh and cry at the same time. Because when they had these musical programs at Terezin, you will read in the subordinate clause of one sentence buried in this book. I read this almost 30 years ago. And the sentence goes, and after this performance, the camp critic said, and I was like, wait a minute, there's a camp critic? You don't know whether you're going to be alive or dead the next day. And somebody's writing, well, maybe in the second movement it wasn't too good, And so it really does make you want to laugh and cry at the same time. But a lot of the works that are going to be in this symphony program next weekend were written by composers who either were just about to be sent to Terezin, or several of them were written by composers who were in Terezin right before they were sent to either Auschwitz or Würzburg. And so it was the very last thing that they wrote. But to give some perspective to this, it's often dangerous in music to equate somebody's real-life experiences and their state of mind, what might be happening in the world, with the art itself. I mean, one of the most famous examples that my wife and I talk about all the time is Beethoven when he was writing his Second Symphony, which is one of the most sunny symphonies that he ever wrote. It's happy-go-lucky almost all the way through. It was written at the same time that Beethoven penned the Heiligenstadt Testament when he realized he was going deaf, and he was almost thinking of committing suicide. And so we can't always equate the sound of the music with the world events of the time that are going on. Sometimes we can, sometimes we can't. But this first clip that we're going to play is an example written by Victor Ullmann, who right before he was sent to Terezin was madly trying to finish off a comedy opera called The Broken Jug. And it's all about a judge who was presiding over a case of a broken jug. And actually, the judge was the one who broke it. But by being the judge, he could then find somebody else guilty. And so many people think this was kind of a very thinly disguised bar about what was going on at that time with the regime of the Nazis. But you will hear in this excerpt this wonderful old-style romantic charm of the 19th century Romanticism, and you'll hear a lot of different mood shifts which was kind of like the style of the musicals and the operettas of the time. A lot of mood shifts in a very, but you can hear the old lilting dance style of the musicals of the time. It's really quite charming. There's another composer who also had kind of a before and after period. His name was Erwin Schurhoff. And during the 20s, he wrote a piece that was very much infused with jazz. One of the movements that we're going to play is called the shimmy, which came from African American dance culture, and it's really cute, and it even has a car horn sound effect in the middle of it. That's kind of the before picture, and then it's almost unfair that I'm cherry picking one of these pieces to contrast it with one of the pieces he wrote in the 40s before he was sent to Würzburg. But he wrote a Symphony of Freedom, and I'm just going to play kind of an excerpt. The whole march is around 3 or 4 minutes long, but this last 40 seconds or so, it's really, I think, affected by the war. And you can hear this absolutely motoric, march-like, relentless drum beat. It's a very powerful, dramatic concert, full of lighthearted romantic moments, but very many serious ones, too. The first half is going to close with the first movement from Shostakovich's Symphony No. 13 called Babi Yar. Babi Yar is a ravine on the outskirts of Kyiv, and so it has a lot of connections in a very strange way with today's culture and today's world events. But over 30,000 Jews were executed in this ravine during the war. And so near the end of Shostakovich's career, Shostakovich in 1962 wrote a letter to the Russian poet Yevtushenko, who had written a poem about Babi Yar. And Shostakovich said, "Would you give me permission to set your poem to music?" And Yevtushenko said yes, and Shostakovich says, "That's a relief because I've already finished it." The complete Symphony No. 13 sets many different poems by Yevtushenko, but it's only the first movement where Yevtushenko is actually talking about Babi Yar and the tragedy at this ravine. But what's really interesting throughout Russian history is that anti-Semitism existed very much in Russia as well. And so Yevtushenko was a very much divisive political figure of the time. And the fact that Shostakovich was going to set this music to Yevtushenko's poetry, basically Shostakovich, his own music was pretty much disencouraged by the regime of the time. They didn't want to absolutely ban the performance because they thought it would give him kind of martyr status and promote his cause more than it should be. But the performance for the people who went was a huge success. And so we have, alongside the Stockton Symphony, singers from the University of the Pacific, from Delta College, the Stockton Chorale, and even a handful of kids from Lincoln High School who have all recently been studying Russian, learning how to sing in Russian, which ain't easy. You know, I mean, the characters, the original Cyrillic characters, and we have what's called a transliteration. Everybody knows about transliterations. And they've been wonderfully coached by a part of this community. A woman named Renata Bricka has been helping a lot with that. And we have a soloist coming up who's going to sing the male role, and it's an all-male chorus. So I'm going to just read to you, because all the words we're going to hear are in Russian, but it's just kind of popping in an excerpt in the middle of this poem. When you will first hear the bass soloist singing the words that say, "It seems that I am the boy from Bialystok," which was one of these pogroms that happened at the very beginning of the 20th century. And then the chorus answers, "Blood pours, spreading across the floors. The tavern rabble-rousers are rampaging, reeking of vodka and onions, half and half." And then the bass solo says, "I kicked off by a boot, and powerless in vain I pray to the pogromists." And the chorus says, "Accompanied by jeers, beat the Yids, save Russia, a grain merchant violates my mother." It's really powerful stuff.
Я мальчик в Биелостоке. Кровь льется, растекаясь пополам. Ищи свою дважды трактирной стойки. И пахнут водкой с луком пополам. Я сапогом отброшен небессильный, напрасно я погромчичков молю.
And that's only the first half of the concert. After intermission, we're going to be playing the first movement of Beethoven's Fifth Symphony. Why are we doing that? Well, I'm glad you asked. This rhythm of short, 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 long. Bop, bop, bop. You know, there just happens to be a piano here. Short, 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 long. Is Morse code for the symbol V. And so during World War II, Churchill and other people started adopting the V signal as a morale symbol for the resistance. And so you have that. It had a lot of symbolism, and it was broadcast in the free world all over on radio, and it became a real symbol during World War II. We're also going to be playing the theme from John Williams' Schindler's List. As you know, Oskar Schindler saved over 1,000 Jews, refugees during the war. And then we have an amazing 12-year-old young woman who's coming to be a star of this show. Her name is Imogen Cohen, who is the daughter of our concertmaster, Christina Mock, and her husband, Tony Cohen. And she's going to be first reciting that famous poem, The Butterfly. You know, I never saw another butterfly. And she's also going to be the narrator for a piece that was written by Michael Tilson Thomas called The Diary of Anne Frank. this whole thing hooks in, again, really interestingly with today's problems and today's culture. Besides the spread of disinformation, it goes even deeper and more insidiously than that, because we have so many people on the internet promulgating conspiracy theories. There is something fascinating about conspiracy theories that even goes beyond politicization. For instance, there's really no Republican-Democrat argument about the conspiracy theory that the moon landing was all fake and it was just all shot in a movie studio. You know, why does that conspiracy theory even exist? Except for the fact that people love to just invent these things, and somehow the attractiveness of a conspiracy theory is that you know the inside track that most people don't know, you know? And so I know the real thing, what they tell you is not true, and this is the real thing, you know? Or Elvis is still alive. You know, don't let them tell you he's dead. He's still with us, you know. But the insidious conspiracy theories go into the whole denial of what happened in those concentration camps. And specifically, there are a whole bunch of people who spread the conspiracy, and these things are still found on the internet, that diary was not written by Anne Frank, you know. It was her uncle, or we know it didn't exist because we found that some of the pages were written with a ballpoint pen, and that couldn't possibly have happened back in the 40s. Well, there has been so much research since then. There was a forensic investigation to prove that those are genuine, and there were just a couple of pages that were made by a scholar of corrections and notes in a ballpoint pen that were interleaved with her diary. And that's, you know, somebody got a hold of this and turned it into a whole conspiracy thing. But there have been forensic experiments that show that her handwriting matches, and it really was written by her. So what's fascinating about our particular performance of this piece, and we're going to do excerpts of the Diary of Anne Frank. Michael Tilson Thomas originally wrote this for Audrey Hepburn. And it was part of a presentation that happened with UNICEF. Just a few years after he wrote it, Janie and I were at Aspen, at the Aspen Music Festival, and Michael Tilson Thomas himself conducted it with Sally Fields narrating. But I don't think he's ever done it with a 12-year-old narrator. And the narrator we're going to have is really close in age to what Anne Frank was when she was writing this. So we're about to hear a recording with an adult narrator, but you got to come to the concert. Imogene Cohen is already a TV and movie star. She's in a lot of things that are broadcast, and she's going to be in a Disney film that's already going to be produced for this coming December. Anyway, here's a little bit of that Diary of Anne Frank.
Daddy began to tell us about going into hiding. Hiding? Where would we go? In a town or the country? In a house or a cottage? Where? How? When? These were the questions I was not allowed to ask. We must disappear of our own accord and not wait until they come to fetch us. We put on heaps of clothes as if we were going to the North Pole. No one in our situation would have dared to go out with a suitcase. I had on 2 vests, 2 pairs of socks, 3 pairs of knickers, a dress, a jacket, a coat, a woolly scarf, and still more.
You notice the genius of that composition. Michael Tilson Thomas takes this little theme that goes beep, bop, ba, 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 beep, you know, nya, 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 nya. It's like a children's song that he, transforms in various places in the music, and so it's this wonderful, interesting dialectic between the mind of somebody that's kind of gone a little bit past being a child, but there are still these wonderful qualities to the music. Near the end of the program, because we did talk about resilience and hope, we're going to be playing The Hope. And so I wanted to set the record straight about something. Because a lot of people who know a little bit of orchestral music have been thinking that somehow the Hatikva came from Smetana's The Moldau, because the melodies are very similar, and I don't blame anybody for thinking of that. And so Smetana's The Moldau has this tune that goes like this. So it's in minor, and it goes up, and it comes back down, and it's really very closely allied to the Hatikva. I mean, they're really very similar. Smetana's Moldau was written in the 1870s. The Hatikva poem fused with the melody came about a decade later, but scholars have recently shown that actually this Moravian melody, which is a blend actually Moldavian and Romanian, goes back at least 500 years. And so it's kind of interesting how but there are so many times in our human culture when people invent the same thing at opposite ends of the globe. I mean, that even happened with the Rubik's Cube. We're closing with Somewhere There's a Place for Us from West Side Story. I was actually coached a little bit at Tanglewood by Leonard Bernstein, and this is somebody who is always very much aware of his own heritage, and so much he wrote. His Symphony Number 1 is called the Jeremiah Symphony, and it has a Hebrew text. But it's really a very fitting way to end the program. I purposely left the music unfinished as a question mark, hoping that it'll make you come to the concert. Just a side note, Not everybody knows the whole history of West Side Story, but in the very early 1950s, when Jerome Robbins and Leonard Bernstein were getting together to plan the show, they were going to call it East Side Story. And it was all going to be about warring factions from different religious creeds. I mean, they knew from the beginning that they wanted to make some kind of modern incarnation of the Romeo and Juliet story. But it really was going to be East Side Story, and it was going to be very much religion-oriented. And then by the time they finally got around to producing the story, the whole relevance of what was happening in gang warfare in New York at the time, with the Jets and the Sharks, you know, that's what transmogrified it into West Side Story. So that's the end of my presentation proper. I just want to say that it's been a real pleasure to be able to work with the Stockton Symphony for 28 years now. They're an incredibly gifted group of talented musicians, and I'm so grateful to be able to come to you and talk about this program. In my 28 years, we've never done a program like this before. You know, we've often played a lot of the standard classics, or we really let our hair down and have a lot of fun in the pops, and we're going to do one of those at the end of this season. We're having a Wild Wild West program, you know, with Bonanza and Rawhide and Blazing Saddles, and we're going to have everybody dress up and have a lot of fun. But it's really important in today's society to recognize the importance that we always campaign against disinformation, against conspiracy theories. We campaign for truth and for preserving history. It's really important, and for preserving love and caring for each other. And so it would mean a lot to us if you could come to one of these performances. Thank you so much. Should I ask for questions, Roy?
Sure you can.
Do we have any? I probably took longer than you were hoping. But
No, I was listening to your every word. I loved it.
do we have any questions or comments? Yes, sir.
Well, I'm wondering if, you know, when you were creating the program, there's some editing that, I'm wondering that when you were creating the program, you probably had to come across some difficult decisions about what to leave in, what to include, what to leave out. Can you comment on that? Was there any difficult decisions that you had?
That's a really great question. Does anybody else have any questions? I would say, you know, to put this in perspective, the way all of our programs are designed with the Stockton Symphony is I basically come up with a proposal of what all the repertoire is going to be for the season, and then we vet it with an artistic advisory committee. And sometimes they make little suggestions or tweaks already, but by and large, like 98% of anything that you hear in any of our concerts is all my fault. And so if you like it, you can give me credit, and if you hate it, it's all my fault. I had more problems putting this program together than any other program I've designed in 28 years. And it was really difficult, first of all, finding just examples of composers because almost all the music that was written, even at Terretzen where it was allowed, were chamber music pieces for just small ensembles. So finding people who were actually writing for larger ensembles was really difficult. Some of the pieces on this program are for slightly smaller chamber orchestra, but they really are all orchestra pieces, with one exception. There's one partita for strings that was written by Gideon Klein 9 days before he was sent to Auschwitz. And it was originally a string trio, but later somebody turned it into a string orchestra piece. But everything else on the program of those people writing during that time was really written for orchestra. And then there are other pieces like the Michael Tilson Thomas and even the Shostakovich that reflect upon the tragedy of the time. And so the hard part that you're asking about was really excruciating, because I can't play, just to use the Michael Tilson Thomas, that piece lasts 42 minutes, but we're only doing excerpts of it. We can't play all of Beethoven 5, we're just doing the first 7 minutes of the first movement. You know, there isn't a single, well, there's a small overture maybe here and there, but almost everything is just kind of like an excerpt of a slice of life, and even choosing which composers to leave in and which to leave out was really tough. So you're right on the money. It was hard. Yes, ma'am.
Was there, thank you. Oh, hi. Was there music allowed to be written at the camps, or how was the music transferred from the camps to your hands?
Another great question. I think if there hadn't been a Terrotzen, almost none of this music would have survived. I think, ironically, it was the Nazis disguising this as a model camp and saying, look, everybody, how well we're treating the prisoners, and look at these great music programs that we have. That allowed the composers to actually work while they were there. But then, almost all of them at the end were shipped off to Auschwitz or to Wolfsburg or someplace like this. And so, for instance, one of the composers, all the people around him said, please, before you go, give us your manuscripts. And so it was heart-wrenching decisions like that were made that allowed this music to survive. And I think that's the resilience and hope part of it, is it's amazing that somehow our human culture is able to preserve these things despite the worst possible circumstances.
Any other questions? I have something, and it's more of a statement than it is a question, but I invite you to reflect back
Okay.
at what popped into my head. You know, you went to the piano and you played Hatikva, and then you came back up onto the bima, and the next thing that you played for us was somewhere, you know,
Yeah.
from West Side Story, and I never heard it that way before, because, you know, it's the music from that movie, it's about that story, but I put Hatikva and somewhere a place for us together, and I thought, my God, that could be the national anthem of Israel, because here were the Jewish people. I mean, it started before the Holocaust,
Yeah.
but after the experience of the Holocaust, here was a people beaten, looking for a place just to survive, dreaming of somewhere a place for us and a time for us. And I don't know if, you know, there's some connection that it was a Jewish composer and it was the pathos of the Jewish people, not just the storyline of West Side Story.
It could be, I think so. If you don't mind me digressing for just a little bit here, going off topic, because what you've said is incredibly powerful and I resonated with very much. But since is there a connection between Smetana's Moldau and Hatikva, or isn't there, or is it just a coincidence? You know, lots of times things percolate in the mind of a composer subconsciously. And Bernstein was a great lover of Beethoven. And so here's a piece of Beethoven. Steve already knows what I'm going to do, right? So I'm going to play the introduction to the slow movement of Beethoven's Fifth Piano Concerto, which is nicknamed the Emperor Piano Concerto, and see after a while if you can hear There's a Place for Us. Did you hear it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So maybe Beethoven wrote West Side Story. I don't know. But I think There's a Place for Us. I mean, the words are so powerful,
Yeah.
too. Yeah.
Well, along with that music.
Yeah.
But I
Yeah.
never heard it so powerfully as I did this evening after you did Hatikva and then explained that. It just, whew.
I love that you said that, because getting back to your question, sir, I agonized for months. What am I going to do to end this program? Yeah.
I heard that Over the Rainbow
Yeah, I was thinking about that too.
She said that she also heard that somewhere over the rainbow is connected. Well, it certainly has a sum in it somewhere.
Well, again, it's Jewish composers and the Jewish experience of, for centuries being stateless and homeless and
Right.
wandering the globe, facing persecution and dreaming of a better time and a place where we can be safe and free.
Yeah.
And there's a saying in Hebrew, Ein chadash tachat hashamesh, which means there's nothing new under the sun, which is not
Including that saying.
Yeah, probably. Someone said it first. Which is not to denigrate something that sounds similar to something else, because I think it's the common thread of the human experience
Yeah.
that brings up this wonderful art and creativity. So there you have it.
Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you. Wonderful. So here's the commercial. I hope you will all support this program next weekend, Saturday night and Sunday afternoon. I hear there's a few tickets still available.
There are plenty of tickets still available. And by the way, feel free to take one of those programs that's on the table. Just take it home with you. It has some programs that we've already performed, but it has this one inside the booklet. It's a little mini booklet. If you go online, you can see the super full cut, and all the program notes and everything like that are sort of condensed in the little mini booklet, but it's a very nice thing, and feel free to take it home.
And not just this concert, but the Stockton Symphony needs our support and our attendance year-round. We're so lucky to have a symphony still in Stockton, where in so many cities all around the country, sadly, many symphonies have disbanded. And so it will only be here if we support it, and that's what we need to do. So please let us all become big supporters of the symphony. And thank you, Peter, for coming. We really appreciate you, and great to see you and Janie here this evening. You're always welcome. And now Deborah Blinder, our member of our board this evening, our hostess, vice president, please come and share our announcements for Shabbat.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Shabbat Shalom. Wow, that was amazing. I am so looking forward to that concert. Thank you, Ari, for keeping us connected with our friends at home tonight. And thank you to Peter Jaffe for joining us tonight. We hope we'll see many of your faces at the Stockton Symphony on April 1st or April 2nd. I'm going on the 2nd. I have my ticket already. Should I start over? Okay. So, anyway, April 1st, April 2nd, get your tickets now if you don't have them yet. For our friends at home, at the end of the live stream, you will see a QR code for the Symphony's website. So have your cameras ready. For those of us here, check today's email or remember stocktonsymphony.org. And here's another thing I'm really excited about. Absolutely do not miss the opportunity to see Noah Aronson live right here this Wednesday, 7 p.m. Noah is an amazing musician and has written many pieces that we sing here at Temple, including some that we sang tonight.
Shalom Aleichem, that Latin one, and the
Yeah.
Baruch Hu, those were both his compositions.
There is no cost and tickets are not needed, thanks to those who RSVP'd. If you didn't RSVP, don't worry about it. Just come and have fun. We've got plenty of room. Learning Lab classes for TK through 8th graders and adults resume this Sunday. Sababa for our high schoolers resumes next Sunday, April 2nd. And next Saturday at 10 a.m., Miller Clark, the son of Kevin and Michelle Clark, not Miller. Yes, Kevin and Michelle Clark, will be called to the Torah as a bar mitzvah. The congregation is invited to share in the simcha. Passover begins at sundown Wednesday, April 5th. The Judaica shop has a beautiful assortment of Seder plates, I know because I ordered them, matzah covers, and other ritual items that will beautify your Seder experience. The shop will be open this Sunday from 9 a.m. Usually Sundays are open until 1 p.m., but this Sunday, because of the Purim Spielcast party, will be open from 9 a.m. until about 11:30 a.m. And also Wednesday from 4 to 6 p.m. And I think that's about it. Shabbat Shalom.
We invite everyone to please come up out of your seats and stand all around the foot of the bima. Join us for our closing song and for Kiddush and Motzi.
Oh, say shalom bimroma. Booyah, say shalom aleinu. Te'ach kol Yisrael. Te'ach kol Yoshvei Tevel. Ve'imru. Amen. Oh, say shalom bimroma.
Let's join together in a short kiddush.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri hagafen. Amen.
L'chaim.
And thank you to Deborah for making a 7th braid? 8 braid. I made an 8 braid tonight too.
Beautiful, Paula. Thank you.
8 braided. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Amen.
Let us turn around and wish a Shabbat Shalom to everyone who's joining us from home. Chatztayim Shalosh.
Shabbat Shalom.
And Shabbat Shalom to everyone here. Have a wonderful weekend and a wonderful Shabbat. And please join us for Oneg in the social hall. Shabbat Shalom.
Romemu Adonai Eloheinu ve'ishtachavu lehar kodsho. Romemu Adonai Eloheinu ve'ishtachavu lehar kodsho. Ki kadosh Adonai Eloheinu romemu. Kadosh Adonai Eloheinu romemu. Romemu Adonai Eloheinu ve'ishtachavu lehar kodsho. Romemu Adonai Eloheinu ve'ishtachavu והשתחוו להר קודשו. כי קדוש אדוני אלוהינו רוממו. כי קדוש אדוני אלוהינו רוממו. רוממו אדוני אלוהינו והשתחוו להר קודשו. כי קדוש אדוני אלוהינו רוממו. כי קדוש אדוני אלוהינו רוממו. קדוש אדוני אלוהינו רוממו. כי קדוש אדוני אלוהינו רוממו. כי קדוש אדוני אלוהינו רוממו.
Well, they do sort of a folk song tradition, which is pretty much what the Reform movement went to way back in the 70s. Oh, yeah, hang on to that.
Oh, yeah, the program?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, good. Yeah, oh, you use the same program over?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah, these are our fancy ones that are
Bound and over.
but somebody took it upon themselves to, this is a service, military service order that was made up for as a temporary summer use apparently years ago before I was here.
This particular service?
Yeah, it's very truncated from the night.
Oh, yeah.
And they've never gotten an official prayer book that everybody else pretty much uses. And then instead of going on to something else, they just kept it. So
But they jumped over a few times.
Oh yeah.
There are a few pages that they missed.
But things are short. Anyway, I've never really been too happy with. I mean, I came from where we had.
Well, you probably had a male camp.
At one time, but then not later. It was a woman.
Did they have
The rabbi said at the time that
it's required rabbi?
it's gotten. I mean,
Well, in the Catholic Church, they have regular mass, then they have a Latin mass once in a while, hardly. They have a Spanish because there's so many Spanish in Michigan. And then they have what they call a folk band. Guitar, drum, more like a Baptist.
well, you're right because a lot of the Christian, more evangelical churches have a whole band.
Oh, yeah, they have their drum set bolted down to the
Well, I thought you did a nice job. It was fun to hear some of them.
Yeah. No, it's good. Yeah. That's what I was telling you about. That I said wrong one, but whenever I hear it, oh man, one of them stole from.
I thought maybe it was something that he had mentioned before.
No. I because I played it, and every time I played it, you realize that's from West Side Story or the other way around. Because
Well, it's not surprising, but it's fun to know that.
exactly. Yeah. Did Beethoven steal it from Berkeley? Probably not. The other way around.
Sure, Bob. Fair. Well, I hope it's a warm wedding tomorrow.
Oh, I hope so. Because outside it'll be cold.
Well, I'm doing something at First Presbyterian Church.
Oh, we're doing that too. Are you tomorrow?
Yeah.
Yeah. Ethan's doing something.
Okay. Well, we got tabling for family problems.
Oh, you are? Oh, okay.
So not in the program, but just that we're going to be there.
Okay. I don't know what time we're going, but we'll probably see you.
Okay. I'm on the 1 to 3 shifts.
As I recall, Ellie said something about 2, but I'm not sure. I'm going tomorrow morning to a baseball game in Tracy, 9 o'clock. You know what that means. It's always freezing down.
It's cold these days, yeah.
You going to coffee?
I think I'll
Okay, yeah, maybe we'll see you tomorrow. For sure. See you Monday.